Welcome back to our series where we get to know some of the Equus coaches trained by the Center for Equus Coaching. But if you're new to hearing about this work, you might be asking, what is Equus coaching? I often describe it as an experiential, embodied, and relational approach to learning that helps someone explore the gap between where they are currently and where they'd like to be in their life. And this is facilitated by horses and certified life coaches. My guess, however, is the coaches you meet through these conversations will help make this even clearer as they share about their work, the benefits their clients are seeing, and how their amazing horse partners are helping in the process. My name is Travis Stock, and I'm an Equus coach since 2013, and I'm one of the instructors for the Center for Equus Coaching. The next coach joining me, Alison Hunter, is a certified Equus Coaching Master Facilitator and licensed marriage and family therapist. She's recently ventured into another therapeutic approach which blends the benefits of Equus coaching, equine therapy, and ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. This feels like cutting-edge stuff, so I'm excited to learn more from her. Thanks for joining me, Alison.
Thanks for having me, Travis.
Wonderful to connect with you and to learn more about this. You and I have been talking about this a little behind the scenes, and I'm fascinated by this work you're doing, and wanting to learn more about it. But before we do that, let's kind of get into your story of like how you got involved with Equus coaching. How did you learn about the Center for Equus Coaching?
I actually learned about the center when I was in the process of doing a sex therapy certification. And my supervisor for that certification was connected with another coach who had gone through, at that time, it was the Coel Institute. And through those different threads, I got in contact with Renee Sievert, who is one of the instructors at the.
Shout out to Renee. Hey, Renee.
Hey, we love her, and she's also a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I was eager to connect with her, and she shared all about the Equus coaching work and how she's incorporated that into her therapy practice. And so that's how I got connected with you folks.
I'm glad you highlighted that because I think that's one of the things I love about the team of instructors at the Center for Equus Coaching the most is we come from different backgrounds with different specialties. So Renee is a marriage and family therapist. She's also been a nurse. She's also done a bunch of other things too. I come from a social work background prior to becoming a coach. Erin comes from the corporate world and finance and corporate. And then Kasha comes from the horse world. Like she has had so much of a lifetime of horsemanship experience. And so we come from such different perspectives, and yet we bring together our specialties to create this thing. And I think that's what's cool about our program because it does attract people like you who are already like a professional out there in the world, who already has a licensure, who already has a governing body that looks over the work you do and makes sure that you're up to code of ethics and stuff.
Yep.
But you're drawn to the work we do because there are those of us that are actually adding some oomph behind the work. It's not just thin in some
That's right.
ways.
That's right. And I'm all about the oomph. And it's similar to what the horses teach us in that
Uh-huh.
there are strengths and everyone has this strength. And that's so true of of the instructors at the center. You guys all bring a different perspective and strength, which I love. And it's such a great community of people who come together from many different areas in the world and expertise. And that's one of the fun parts about it is for me being part of that community. I love that.
Community is the key, and that you're right that we do learn that from the horses. They model that for us. They have their own community, and they hold community and power and leadership and connection. They all hold it a little bit different than we do as humans, but it's a really cool model that they give us that everybody has their place within there. So speaking of horses, why was it important to you to add horses into the work you're already doing? Like, why are you drawn to this work with horses?
Yeah, it's a great question. I grew up riding horses and competing in the hunter jumper world in Hawaii and in California. So horses have always been a part of my life and a really special part of my life. My mom always used to say, there you are in your happy place when I would send her a picture of me being out with horses. And so when I became a therapist, I really wanted to find a way to combine these two things that I loved. And I just know from my own personal experience spending time with horses that it was always the place I felt most grounded, most connected, most calm. Um, and I also like experiential learning. And so I just thought that these two, we call them in the therapy world modalities, bringing them together could be so powerful.
I resonate with that as a social worker prior to this, that like there's so much, so there's, you can get to places with your clients when working with them on sort of the talk level and in terms of like sessions where you're working through things with people, but something about that experiential and embodied kind of learning really just seems to stick a lot more for people, and actually seems to speed up the process of learning for people as well.
100%. It's like exponential growth that I see when I incorporate it. And it does, as you're saying, right? It takes it out of this head based, conversational, intellectualized
Mm.
way of learning into that embodied, experiential. Now I'm doing something with it, which I think people can just really catch on to that and then incorporate what they've learned so much more easily into their life when they actually have the practice of doing something.
And it's fascinating how like counterculture that is in some ways. It's like our whole school system is set up to just learn it up here, just to memorize things and learn it up there.
That's
And
right.
actually teaches like little children to sit still, to not move, to not be in their bodies, to not experience things, just to like kind of sit still and figure it out up here. So I love that we're kind of like counterculture in that way, bringing people back into nature, into relationships with other beings, in
Yes.
movement.
Yep.
Like that's the kind of learning that resonates with me.
Me too. I love it.
So I gave my definition in the beginning of like how I like to describe this work. I think sometimes we're all just still trying to put words to this experiential model, and like people get it once they do it, but how do you put language to it to somebody who's new to this work? How do you explain Equus coaching?
Yeah. It's a hard thing to put words to, as you're saying. And I often will say that to people when I start out. You're not going to understand or really get what I'm about to tell you until we actually go out and do it. Um, but I also see it as a relational framework. I'm a relational life therapist. I would say all of my therapy practice revolves around relationships, whether it's relationship to the self or to an intimate partner or a family system. So the way I describe this work is that, horses are social beings and prey animals. So they're social beings like we are. They live in connection with one another. And because they're prey animals, they're very attuned to their environment, to congruence, to authenticity and emotions. And so when we partner with horses, we are creating a new relationship and we have an opportunity to see how we show up in the world and to have that reflected back to us like a mirror. And then we get the opportunity, and this is the experiential part, to practice trying different things to see what that then creates or reflects to us. And then we get to choose, that's
Mm.
part of the experiment. Do I like that or do I like the old way of doing it better? And we can make adjustments. So that's kind of how I describe it to people is it's an opportunity just to invite yourself into a new relationship to learn about yourself and who you are in the world.
I love that concept that you're bringing up of it. It brings choice to the situation again. So many times we're operating under habits in the world. We're just showing up because that's how we've always done it. That's our pattern. That's how we approach things.
Yeah,
And doing it in this way does give us this way to experiment with new ways. And it doesn't mean that that new way is going to work or it's going to be better, but at least we get to try it out and get some feedback on how it goes in the container that's not so like high risk for failure.
that's right.
And so I love that it gives more choice when people get to explore this. And if that doesn't work, then I get to try another thing. Then I get to try another thing. There's so many options for what I could try.
Yeah.
And I love how you're bringing that forward, that Equus coaching really is about giving people more choice.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples that come to mind? I think people can understand, people have a pretty good idea of what therapy is
Mhm.
and how a therapist works with their clients. Do you have any examples that come to mind about like how you're working with somebody would look differently as a therapist than when you're offering an Equus coaching session with them? Like, can you paint a picture for us what the difference is?
Yeah. So, as a therapist, you're often looking at how the past influences the present and the future, right? So, you're looking at things like how does your family of origin influence who you are today and how you show up in your relationships? So, there's a component of therapy that can be past oriented. With coaching and with Equus coaching, it's much more present based, noticing what's happening in the moment, and then helping the clients really to answer the questions that they have for themselves, right? There's
Mm.
an idea in therapy that the therapist is the expert, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually like that model of therapy because I am a relational being. I'm much more in partnership with my clients. And so this is another reason why this work really resonates with me is I don't come to this as the expert. I come to it with curiosity and with the idea that, our clients are the experts on themselves and we can support and provide some guidance to them to find the answer that fits best for them in the present moment. And as they think about goals and sort of where they want to go with their life. So I think those are some of the big ways that this work differs from traditional therapy work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you helping us really reflect on that because there are differences. We are kind of sister fields, the coaching and the therapy world, and we borrow from each other's skill sets, but there are different reasons to go to a therapist than there are to go to a coach. And so I think that's helpful information. Now, one of the things I love about our training is that you don't just come to learn the skills. Like you actually have to go through the process yourself and learn, have your own learnings. Are there any of your own learnings that are like some of the things that stick with you the most from going through the Equus coaching course that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So many things. I'm trying to focus on. I think a big one for me is this idea of letting go of control.
Oof. You had to go there, didn't you? How
I
dare
know.
you?
I know. I hate even admitting it. I hate even admitting it. It's so
Uh-huh.
hard that
Uh-huh.
like I do. I like to have control of things. And so really throughout the process, because as we know, as we know so well with horses, we can't control a 1,200-pound animal. We just can't. And so always coming back to this place of what can I control in this situation? And really the only thing that I have control over is myself.
Hmm.
Um, and when I was going through my training, that was a lot of the focus of that part of the training where, we go through the process that we're later going to ask our clients to go through so that we know what this is like. And it's so important for us as coaches and as therapists, of course, to do our own work and always be doing that work. So this was a big one for me, letting go of control and reminding myself, what can I control?
What a perfect lesson for navigating the way the world feels these days. There is so much that many of us don't feel in control over. And it's true, we don't have control over a lot of things. There's a whole bunch of uncertainty about the future and the unknown. And I think people are trying to figure out their relationship to that and what they do have control over and what they don't. And so I love that this can really help us. Horses can really help us see what's in our control and what isn't. You're right. When you think you have control when you're walking on with a halter on a horse and a lead rope and you're walking, and that's a 1,200-pound animal. If it wants to run, it will run. You
That's
don't
right.
have control. That's an illusion of control you got there.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Well, I think this is a good point for us to transition into the what I was kind of talking about in the beginning of this, which is the new kind of work that you're doing with ketamine assisted psychotherapy and your Equus coaching business. Now, I want to say a first caveat up front. We at the Center for Equus Coach don't train people to do the work that we're talking to you about, the ketamine assisted psychotherapy. That's your therapy practice, and your license allows you to do different things than a standard Equus coach would be able to. So if you are somebody that's interested in this conversation and hears this, just know that the Center for Equus Coaching is not teaching how to do this work. But I am fascinated to learn how what you learned with us is brought into that space. So first, not everybody's going to know what we're talking about when we say ketamine assisted psychotherapy. So tell us what that is.
Sure. Ketamine is a molecule which has been found to be incredibly successful in treating treatment resistant depression, anxiety, PTSD. And so it's a medicine that somebody can take. It's historically been used as an anesthesia. Um,
Mm.
and so it has dissociative properties and psychedelic properties at a large dose. We are not using large doses. And I think the other caveat to all of this is I'm not a doctor, I'm a therapist. So I can't do any prescribing of
Mm-hmm.
ketamine. Or any administration of ketamine. I partner with a doctor who's an anesthesiologist for Soul Strides, which is the nonprofit that we created. And so Dr. Sarah is the person who does all of the medical intake and the assessment and the prescribing and the administering of the medicine. In my private practice, I partner with an organization called Journey Clinical, and they do all of the medical side of the prescribing. And then I can offer it in terms of providing therapeutic support for a client who is undergoing treatment with ketamine therapy with one of those organizations.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of this is that even as a therapist, you're not in charge of prescribing or handing out this medication. There's a doctor, there's medical parts to this that are part of the legality issues and part of responsible ways of administering medicine. Like all medicine should be coming from a doctor, not from a therapist or a coach or something like that.
That's right.
Some of the things you were talking about, though, that I find that might be on people's mind, it's like, okay, so this thing that's traditionally used as anesthesia that has in large doses can be dissociative or psychedelic. Okay, wait, you're gonna do that and horses together? That seems weird. Like, help us understand how these two works are coming together.
Yeah, it's such a good question. Sarah and I often joke that we're not doing ketamine while we're engaging with the horses, and the horses aren't doing the ketamine at all.
Okay, good, good. All good things to know.
So when we do our retreats, we have different formats. We have a full day format, which in that situation, we started using the Equus coaching for the first part of the day. And what that helps to do is to create a safe container because it's also a group setting. So
Hmm.
you have the modalities of ketamine assisted psychotherapy, Equus coaching or equine assisted psychotherapy, and group work. So when we do the group work with the horses in the morning, that really helps people to first get their nervous systems regulated because horses are so great at supporting us in nervous system regulation. Um, and so that gets people to sort of settle into the day. It gets the group connected because now they're having these Equus coaching sessions in front of one another. They're being witnessed and they're witnessing. They're providing support to one another. And they're really anchoring into their intention for the day and what they want to carry over to the work with the ketamine later in the afternoon. So we do half a day with the horses, then we have a little break, and then we do the later part of the day is the ketamine medicine work. And one of the interesting things that um, is fun to note is the journey, and we can look at the Equus coaching experience as a journey, because in both the Equus coaching and the ketamine assisted psychotherapy work, we set an intention, right? What is the thing that we want to focus on or get some support with? And that intention is going to really kind of influence the experience that you're going to have, right? With whatever the experience is going to be with the horse or with the medicine, right? So in Equus coaching, the horse is the medicine. The wisdom comes from the horse, just like in ketamine assisted psychotherapy, the medicine is, in that case, the molecule ketamine. And then after the actual experiential journey, we have a period of integration, which we do with the horses as well, where you think about, what am I taking away from this experience and what can I bridge back home? What do I want to practice or lean into or ground into? So they follow a similar arc,
Mm.
which is really fun.
Sounds really complimentary that the fact that they do that. Yeah, this whole thing around intention is important to the work that we do, which is, I kind of like to use the metaphor of going to college. Like going to college, you're going to learn something, and your major is like your intention. Here's how I'm going to format my learning to best prepare me to learn about this thing that will help me moving forward. That's kind of like intention setting. You've got this space to learn in an Equus coaching session to really do some reflection on your own patterns, your relationships, what's going on in your life, things you want support with. But if we hone in on something that's a little bit more focused, it helps guide the experience. It's the lens at which we look at and the way that we approach it. So it really does help us be successful with our learning when we set intentions. And it sounds like it's also important in the ketamine work as well.
Yes, that's right.
So some people that are listening to this are not going to even have known what Equus coaching was or what group work is or anything. So can you paint a little bit more of a picture of like what a typical session might look like in the Equus portion of the day when you're working with this, so that like maybe share a specific example that comes up for you that you remember that stood out to you, of like something that somebody was learning in their Equus coaching session and how the horse helped with that.
Yeah, love to do that. Our groups are typically small in size, which helps to provide a sense of psychological safety as well as physical safety. That's super important.
Kind of important.
Yeah, because in order to learn anything, we have to feel safe.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, we're just like the horses. If we don't feel safe, we're in our fight flight mode, and we don't take anything in that headspace. So small group size. And what it looks like is each individual has an opportunity to go in to a round pen with a horse, and the horse is loose, and they get to go in and, we coach around this intention. So the first thing is asking and getting clear about what they would like some support on, or what they would like to create as an intention for themselves as they step into that arena, right? And as you know, this work is full of metaphor. And
Mm-hmm.
so we step into a round pen, and that's the arena, just like the arena of life, or, school or work or any other arena that we might find ourselves in throughout the day. So then they go in, and we would have given a demo and a safety demonstration prior to all of this. So that's important to know as well. And then they go in and they really can do whatever they want to do with the horse, which often throws people
Yeah,
because,
that sounds intimidating. You've got a horse that's loose and you're like, okay, I can do anything
right, right.
except for maybe jump on its back. Maybe
Yeah,
that's the only rule that
yeah.
you've been given.
That's right. I've never actually had anyone try to do that. So I've never had to give that instruction. But I might start including that in the now.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's really just this is a new relationship that you have the opportunity to experience and play with. And I think that's also an important word is we want to support people to also just feel a sense of playfulness. So often that gets lost in our day-to-day life. And so inviting playfulness and curiosity. So then the person would engage with the horse, and throughout that time, and in a group setting like that at a retreat, they have, maybe 15 minutes, each
Mhm.
of them. And throughout that time, I'm providing some coaching just in terms of what are you noticing as you spend time with the horse? And what are you noticing that the horse is reflecting back to you? And so that gives the person an opportunity to reflect and share what they're noticing, kind of create some observations about themselves and their own internal dialogue, as well as the meaning that they make in what's happening in this relationship with the horse. It also gives the participants an opportunity to learn about themselves as they're watching their members of their cohort participate in their session, because we can learn so much about ourselves through watching and learning from others. So that's a really beautiful part of the process as well.
Yeah, group work is so cool for that. It's like you learn in your own experiences, but then you also get to see yourself or people in your lives in the people you're there watching.
That's
And you
right.
get to like learn from a bit more like a sitting back and watching rather than from that active engaged kind of learning. And I think both are really cool parts of this experience. As we're kind of coming to like you've given some pretty clear ideas about how the day goes, as we're coming kind of towards the end of our conversation, I'd love to hear, do you have any specific client examples, like something like favorite learnings you watch somebody have from both the Equus part of things, but then also how the ketamine has helped somebody?
Yeah, I can. There's so many I could share. One was an Equus group coaching session, and it's with a group of mothers that I support every year. There's about 40 of them, and they're called the Warrior Women. And they're a group of mothers who have adult children with substance use disorder.
Hmm.
And they're just the most lovely humans. It's a really special experience that we get to share with them. And so, in one of the coaching sessions, I had one of the moms in the arena, and she was just sharing how tired she was. Because many of them, because of their experience, have become advocates, and all the work that she was doing with her own child to support them, and the advocate work, and just all the things she's managing. And you could just see how draining it was for her. And she was turned toward the outside and talking to me. And in the background, as she talked about this, the horse in the arena just got down on the ground and laid down, and he just rested his muzzle on the ground, and he just settled in for some rest.
Hmm.
And I said to her, I wonder if you could just turn around and look at what's happening behind you. Because she was talking about how she doesn't have any time for rest. And
Gosh, our horse friends are so cool.
you can't make this up.
Uh-huh.
Right? You can't create it. It's just, it truly is magic. And she turned around to see this horse lying down, and she just covered her face and she cried. And she just finally was at a place where she could sort of see that, like, even this great, big, strong creature needs time to rest, and she was able to, I think, kind of really take that in, how important that is. So that's a session that always really sticks in my mind, just in terms of how magical it is.
And an important thing to know for people that don't have any horsemanship knowledge, like it's a pretty vulnerable position for a horse to put themselves in. Those are flight animals. Their way of keeping themselves safe is to be able to flee, to run. And if they lie down, there's a lot of effort in getting back up. And so, in some ways, this horse has just valued its own rest, even in the situation where they might need to protect themselves and flee. And so they've chosen that even though safety is important, they also trust themselves to find moments to rest like that.
That's right.
And I think that I can totally see why that was a powerful lesson for her to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, what about with the ketamine?
Yeah, I think if you were to sort of pull that thread through, then the intention maybe in going into the ketamine journey would be something along the lines of
Let myself rest.
help me, right, like help me find ways to rest,
Yeah.
and maybe even like what's getting in the way of my rest. Right. And I mean, we've talked about how these two modalities really complement one another. I think one of the interesting things is that the ketamine journey is an internal reflection and experience. So you have this internal experience with the medicine, which you then have the external mirroring and learning that we get with the horses. So you can take this experience of what was reflected out from the horse in the morning, and you can pull that thread through and really deepen into the sort of like, help me understand why this is hard, or help me understand what the benefit might be of allowing myself to do this. And then you get a different perspective internally, which then you take out and externalize it again. So it's just this interesting flow of external work, internal work, externalizing the internal work to notice what that does for my internal state, right?
Wow. I can totally see how adding that as an afternoon piece after the Equus part really even takes the integration even deeper.
That's right.
Really helps that learning really settle into yourself and into a new way of being in the world. That's really beautiful. And I think is a lovely teaser so that people can get kind of interested in this work and look more into it.
Mhm.
If people wanted to find out more about your work you're doing, either as a therapist, as a coach, as an Equus coach, as a in this ketamine assisted psychotherapy, how do they find out about your work in the world?
Yeah, if people are interested in the retreats, they can take a look at our website, which is soul, strides.org, because we are a nonprofit.
Love the merch.
Love the merch. Eye on the horse.
Uh-huh. Love
Great.
that. So great.
And then my therapy practice, if they want to find out more about that, they can go to AlisonHunterTherapy.com.
Well, that's great. I'll make sure those are in the kind of show notes and description so people can easily access that and to find out more information. If anything in our conversation has sparked your interest, if you've been watching and listening to us talk and want to learn about Equus coaching, please go to equuscoach.com to find out more information about when our trainings are held, what those trainings look like, and how you might sign up if you're interested in offering this with anybody in your life as well. Thanks again, Alison, for joining me. And I've had such a great conversation with you and learning about this new modality that feels so kind of like on the cutting edge.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. It's always fun chatting. I love having time with you. Thanks for having me.